cameras were rolling live when Tom Hanks' face changed, his voice trembled, and he said, "Jimmy, please turn the cameras off." They didn't turn off, and what happened next became television history. It was a Tuesday night taping of The Tonight Show. Standard setup. Tom Hanks was promoting his latest film, sitting in the guest chair with that familiar warmth that had made him America's most beloved actor for 4 decades. Jimmy Fallon was doing what he did best. Laughing genuinely, asking questions that felt like conversation rather than interview. There were 12 minutes into the segment. Everything was going perfectly. Tom had just finished a funny story about a mishap on set. The audience was laughing. Jimmy was grinning. The band was playing a light riff. This was late-night television at its smoothest. Then Jimmy asked a simple question. "So Tom, your kids must be proud of this one, right?" Tom's smile didn't fade immediately. It took about 2 seconds. But Jimmy saw it, the way Tom's eyes shifted, the slight tightening around his mouth, the way his hands moved from relaxed gesturing to gripping the armrests. "Yeah," Tom said, his voice slightly different now. "Yeah, they are." Jimmy, reading the room like the professional he was, kept it light. "I bet your son Colin watched the premiere, didn't he?" That's when it happened. Tom's face went still. His jaw tightened. He looked down at his hands, then back up at Jimmy, and something in his expression made the entire studio hold its breath. "Jimmy," Tom said quietly, Can we turn the cameras off for a second?" Tom Hanks had been on 1,000 talk shows. He'd never asked this before. Jimmy's smile froze. Not the TV host's smile, but his real smile underneath. His eyes darted to the cameras, to his producers in the wings, back to Tom. The audience, sensing something had shifted, went from laughter to confused silence in seconds. "I'm sorry," Jimmy said, buying time, his hand instinctively moving toward the blue cards on his desk even though he wouldn't find answers there. "The cameras," Tom repeated, and now there was no mistaking it. His voice was shaking. "Could we just... I need to tell you something, but I need the cameras off." The studio was massive, but in that moment it felt like the smallest room in the world. 300 audience members leaning forward. The roots frozen mid-note. Camera operators looking at each other, then at the control room, then back at the interview, waiting for someone to tell them what to do. Jimmy made a split-second decision that would define the next 20 minutes. "Tom," he said gently, setting down his cards completely, "whatever you need to say, you can say it. But I think maybe people should hear it. Is that okay?" Tom looked at him for a long moment. His eyes were glistening now, fighting something back. The audience was so quiet you could hear the studio lights humming. "You sure?" Tom asked. "I'm sure. We're here. We're listening." Tom nodded slowly. He took a breath. Then another. Then he started talking, and what he said wasn't in any pre-interview notes. "My son Colin called me 3 days ago," Tom began, his voice steady but thin, like ice you're not sure will hold your weight. "We haven't spoken in 8 months. Not because we fought. Not because of some big dramatic thing. We just drifted. You know how that happens?" Jimmy nodded. He didn't interrupt. "He's 32 now. Lives in New York. Has his own life, his own career. And I'm proud of him. I am. But somewhere in the last few years, we stopped being close. We stopped calling unless it was a birthday or a holiday. We stopped having real conversations." The audience was completely motionless. This wasn't what they'd come to see. This wasn't the Tom Hanks they knew, the charming, funny, always put-together movie star. This was something else. 3 days ago," Tom continued, "Colin called me. And I almost didn't answer because I was busy, because I had meetings, because..." His voice cracked. He stopped. Collected himself. "Because I've been making that choice for years. Being too busy for a phone call." What Jimmy didn't know was that Colin Hanks was sitting in row 8 of the studio audience. Tom kept talking. "But I answered. And he said, 'Dad, I'm getting married.' And I should have been happy. I should have said congratulations immediately. But you know what I said? I said when? Like I was checking my calendar. Like his wedding was an appointment I needed to schedule around. Jimmy's expression had shifted from concern to something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. And Colin. Tom had to stop again. He pressed his fingers to his eyes, took a breath. Colin said, I don't know when yet, Dad. I just wanted you to be one of the first to know. I wanted to tell you myself, not have you hear it from someone else. The studio lights felt too bright. The silence felt too heavy. No one moved. And then he said something that... Tom's voice broke completely now. He said, I know you're busy. I know your life is complicated. But I'm your son, and I miss you, and I wanted you to know before I told anyone else because you're still the first person I want to share good news with, even if we haven't talked in months. A sound came from the audience, a soft, choked sob. Then another. Jimmy's eyes were red now too, though he hadn't said a word. Tom looked down at his hands. I told him I loved him. I told him I was sorry. I told him I'd be there for everything, the planning, the engagement party, the wedding, all of it. And he said, I know, Dad. I know you will. He looked back up at Jimmy. And the thing is, he believed it. Even though I've been absent. Even though I've chosen work over him more times than I can count. He still believes I'll show up. And I realized sitting on that call that I didn't deserve that faith. But I was going to earn it back. The cameras captured every second. The producers in the control room were crying. This wasn't television anymore, it was something else. Jimmy finally spoke. His voice was soft, careful. Tom, why are you telling us this now? Tom smiled slightly, but it was sad around the edges. Because I came here tonight to promote a movie. And that's fine. That's my job. But sitting here talking about my work, it felt hollow. Because the most important thing happening in my life right now isn't a film premiere. It's my son getting married. And I've spent so many years being Tom Hanks, movie star, that I forgot how to just be Tom Hanks, Colin's dad. He turned to look directly at the audience. I wanted to say it out loud. I wanted people to hear it. Because maybe there's someone out there who has a son or a daughter or a parent they haven't called in too long. Maybe there's someone who's been too busy, who's been drifting, who's been putting off that conversation. His voice got stronger now. Clearer. Don't wait. Don't assume you'll have time later. Don't let 8 months turn into 8 years. Call them. Tonight. After this show. Before you go to bed. Just call them. The audience started clapping. Not the excited applause of entertainment, but something slower, deeper. People were standing. Some were openly crying. Jimmy stood up from behind his desk and walked over to Tom, pulling him into an embrace. And then something happened that no one had planned. A man stood up in the 8th row of the audience. 32 years old. Brown hair. His father's eyes. He was crying. Dad, Colin Hanks called out, his voice breaking over the applause. Tom turned toward the sound. His eyes went wide. His hand flew to his mouth. Colin? He said, disbelieving. What are you? This was the moment no one in the studio saw coming. Colin Hanks had been there the entire time. Colin was already moving, making his way past the other audience members toward the aisle. Tom stepped away from Jimmy, moving toward the edge of the stage. Jimmy stepped back, giving them space, tears streaming openly down his face now. Father and son met at the edge of the stage. Tom reached down, Colin reached up, and they grabbed each other's hands. I wanted to surprise you, Colin said, his voice thick. I wanted to see your interview. But I didn't know you were going to. I'm sorry, Tom said. I'm so sorry I haven't been there. I'm so sorry for all the times Dad, stop. Colin climbed up onto the stage, and they held each other while 300 strangers and millions of viewers watched a father and son find their way back to each other. Jimmy stood off to the side, not interfering, letting this moment exist. The roots played nothing. The cameras kept rolling. This wasn't entertainment. This was life happening in front of cameras that had been asked to turn off but hadn't. After what felt like forever and no time at all, Tom and Colin separated slightly. Tom kept one hand on his son's shoulder, like he was afraid if he let go, this moment would disappear. Tom turned to Jimmy. "This is why I wanted the cameras off. I knew he was going to be here. The producers told me before the show. And I thought I'd keep it together. I thought I could do the interview and see him afterward and it would be fine. But when you asked about my kids, I couldn't pretend anymore." Jimmy wiped his eyes. "I'm glad you didn't." Tom looked out at the audience. "I've been acting my whole life. Playing characters, telling stories, pretending to be people I'm not. And it's a good job. I love it. But tonight I didn't want to act. I wanted to be real. I wanted my son to see me being real." Colin nodded, unable to speak. Tom turned back to the cameras he'd asked to turn off, the cameras that had captured everything. "If you're watching this, and you have someone you need to call them. Don't wait for a talk show. Don't wait for a perfect moment. The perfect moment is right now." Colin pulled something from his jacket pocket. An envelope. Old, creased, like it had been carried around for years. "Dad," Colin said, "do you remember writing me letters when you were filming Castaway?" Tom's face shifted. "Recognition. You were 8. I was gone for 4 months in Fiji. You sent me a letter every week. 23 letters total." Colin held up the envelope. "This is number 17. You want to know what it says?" Tom shook his head slightly, not because he didn't want to know, but because he couldn't trust his voice. Colin opened it carefully, unfolded the worn paper. His hands were shaking. "You wrote, 'Colin, I know I'm far away. I know work takes me places where I can't bring you. But every single day, when they yell cut, the first thing I think about is coming home to you. You are the reason I work hard. You are the reason every role matters. Because I want to make you proud. I want you to see what your dad does and think, that's my hero. I love you more than any ocean between us. Dad." The silence in the studio was complete. Tom's face crumpled. He reached for his son, and this time when they embraced, it wasn't tentative or uncertain. It was the kind of hug that tries to make up for lost time, for missed phone calls, for 8 months of distance. Jimmy stood watching, one hand over his mouth, the other gripping the edge of his desk for support. Questlove had his head in his hands. The audience wasn't just crying now, they were witnessing something sacred. When Tom and Colin finally separated, Tom turned to Jimmy with red eyes and a genuine smile. "I guess I'm not very good at turning off the cameras after all," he said. The audience laughed through their tears. The tension broke slightly, just enough to breathe. Jimmy walked over and put one hand on Tom's shoulder, one on Colin's. "Tom, you just gave everyone watching something more valuable than any movie. You gave them permission to be imperfect. To admit when they've drifted. To come back." Tom nodded. "That's all any of us can do. Come back. Keep coming back." Colin folded the letter carefully and handed it to his father. "Keep this one, Dad. For when you need to remember." Tom took it, pressed it to his chest, over his heart. "I won't need it to remember. But I'll keep it anyway. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it, because stories like this deserve to be heard." The show didn't continue with its scheduled segments that night. Jimmy brought out chairs, and Tom and Colin sat with him for another 20 minutes, just talking. About family. About forgiveness. About the small distances that become canyons if you don't pay attention. The producers wanted to cut to commercial 6 times. They didn't. The network wanted to wrap. They didn't. Because some moments matter more than schedules. 3 months later, Tom Hanks walked his son down the aisle at Colin's wedding. In his jacket pocket, he carried letter number 17. During his father of the groom speech, he read it aloud to 200 guests. "I wrote this 24 years ago," Tom said. "And I forgot I wrote it. But my son remembered. He kept every single letter. And when I forgot who I wanted to be as a father, he reminded me." The cameras weren't rolling that day. But the moment was no less real. Back at The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon kept that episode in a special place. It's the one he shows to new producers, new hosts, anyone who asks him what late-night television can be at its best. "Sometimes," Jimmy says, "the cameras should turn off. But sometimes, very rarely, keeping them on is the bravest thing you can do." Tom knew that. And he let us all see what it looks like when someone chooses to be real. The letter is now framed in Colin Hanks' home office. Above it, a photo from that Tonight Show taping, father and son on stage, holding each other, while the world watched them find their way back. Tom was right. The cameras should have turned off. But everyone's grateful they didn't.